Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip,
And I'm CJ.
and it is Wednesday in the Riv after Super Duper Tuesday. All kinds of TV coverage, all kinds of prognostications and uh, comments on what this election does mean and mean. Everybody's all the pundits are now all giving you their opinion on what this all means. And you know, just let's remember 2016. They all looked like somebody gut shot them after the election because the people rose up and gave them a message on who they wanted, and hopefully that will happen again. So we know what the results are, but I got to start something. It was requested of me by someone to share something with everybody, and I think it's noteworthy. March 1st marked the 45th year that Nancy Smith was with the Park Department. So kudos to you for putting up with the crap you have to put up with and for 40 years, and we know that you're not one of the chosen, so you don't get, you get understaffed and underfunded and because the Cougs, you're not one of the selected anointed people that will get anything they want, and 15 assistants and $10,000 pay raises and things like that. So with that, thank you for your service. Don't retire, because Coogan's trying to destroy your retirement system. We will get into that later in the show and on Friday in depth. So, but congratulations on your 45 years of service, and thank you for your
And just so
service.
people know, I have referred to Nancy Smith as Park Nazi for many years, and it's a term of endearment.
A turn, that's right.
And Nancy knows that because she sticks to the rules, whether or not people like it, and she gets more crap for sticking to the rules and making it work. And now they're talking about charging the teams for use of the parks, which I think they should do. I really think they should. But at the same time, I don't want to hear that you're charging for the parks and you expect them to keep the parks up. Because right now, what a lot of these places are doing is a lot of these leagues is they're turning around and they're fixing the fields, fixing the grass, keeping the place clean, and all of a sudden, well, now we want to talk about charging you a fee. Well, don't expect them to keep the park clean. Put the people out there to keep the park clean. Put the people out there to keep the fields in order. Put the people out there to make sure the place is maintained. Oh, wait a minute. Maintenance. Oh, something we're really good at.
Yeah, CJ, and that's the whole point. That it's not going to happen. They're going to charge them, and the people are going to be pissed because they're going to have to maintain the fields because you'll have the grass will be 3 feet high on the baseball fields, and then all whine saying, "Oh, we couldn't get to it. Oh, we're understaffed, and but we'll get 4 supervisors in the school department to do the job of one that's been doing it fine, and give them $100,000." This is the problem again, because we don't care about laws only when they benefit us, and we'll get into that. But I got a little thing, a little on that pathetic Fall River stationery that they did it on a computer. It's not even they can't even afford to send it to a printer to have some decent logo. And basically what it says is the City of Fall River commercial collection of waste and recyclables, and it's saying Fall River will no longer collect curbside waste. Well, we're not supposed to in the first place, Paulie. It only took you 3 terms to abide by the ordinance. And the only reason you're abiding by the ordinance is you're so broke. Mr. Flush, we're doing great. I got $88 million to blow. Didn't help a damn thing for the taxpayers. 3 terms to stop it. You know why? You need the nickel and dimes you're going to save that we have to pay to get rid of it. We, the taxpayer, have to pay to dispose of their waste that we have been paying since you were elected to office, and you expanded that list during your tenure as mayor. You increased the liability on the taxpayers, but you don't care. What does that law matter? Laws and ordinances and statutes don't matter to you if they get in the way. You're like Joe Biden. Supreme Court ruled that I can't give everybody their money back for college to get their vote. I'm going to do it anyway. I don't care. I don't care. And this is the whole problem with these politicians. They are all pathetic. That's number one. And number two, while we're on elections, I guess an election that was close to home was that a person who is known locally, ran for council, Boomer Amaral, ran against Angel Pantoja for the Republican State Committee, and the final result of that vote was Boomer Amaral 7,257, Angel Pantoja 2,737. So it was a pretty convincing victory on that for the Republican committee, and hopefully this guy will bring some kind of sense. And I don't have to explain that to you, CJ. You used to be a Republican. I've always been you used to be a Republican, but that party is so they feed off each other. That's the problem with that party. They love to stab each other. You're muted, see. But you know better
than anybody. The Republican Party is no longer what it used to be. I don't know what it is now. It's something totally different. Okay? They're so... And the race between Gabe Amaral and Angel Pantoja was a personality race. Because what happened is Angel Pantoja had a few questionable issues with the court system, assault and battery on a minor, etc. And I've heard different stories about it where he supposedly was charged for beating his child or whatever the case may be. And so people voted the way they did because the Republicans made sure they decimated in one fashion or another one candidate over the other. This is the problem with the Republican Party. They cannot pull together and unify. And that's what is important. Bringing the party together to unify. The Democrats aren't doing any better. The Democrats truly aren't doing any better. And when you look at the numbers in Fall River, okay, for the election results, I'll tell you now, doesn't make it at all. 9,325 people total voted. 9,000 people out of 55,000. 55,000. According to Ryan Lyons, it's 15.5% of the registered voters. 5,327 were Democratic ballots. 3,857 were Republican ballots. 141 were Libertarian ballots, and there were no ballots cast for nonpartisan or unenrolled. And there were 19 write-in candidates. 19. Imagine that. Biden received a total of 3,842. Now, here's something that you need to see. Donald Trump received 3,123. 3,123. Now, with Biden, there's approximately 1,000. There's about 1,300 votes that were cast for other people or for no preference. 1,300 votes. That can go anywhere. And he's got 3,842. On the Republican side, There's 29, 8, 5, 4, 23, 612 for no for Nikki Haley and 37 for no preference. So you've got about 700 votes, if that, in the Republican side that can go anywhere. And they could possibly go to Donald Trump, which would bring them very close in this election. Very close at Fall River. This is going to be an interesting election when we start looking at other communities and we start looking at Fall River, because there's no question about it. Fall River is starting to go purple.
Yeah, well, with what you said about the Republicans, that's the problem because the Democrats, there are a lot of people not voting for Biden because obviously they have a functional brain and can see what's happened to this country, what he's done to it. But they never vote Republican virtually. Those people that are demonstrating now and don't like his policy in the Middle East, they may not vote at all, but they're not going to vote the progressive wing of the left wing of the Democratic Party. Rashida Tlaib, all the rest of them, they're not going to vote for a Republican, ever. That's the difference. The Democratic Party, they have all kinds of infighting, but when it comes to an election, they pick a candidate, but they will not support a candidate, an opposite candidate. They may defer, where the Republicans actively work against anybody. And you get back to that Boomer Angel race, I think that basically was exactly what you talk about with the Republican Party. I think that Angel's campaign was about exclusion of some people. He was using, we got to get rid of the rhinos, we got to do this, we got to do that. And I think that Boomer, candidate, and I'm only speaking from what I've heard, because I don't really get deeply involved in Republican politics or Democratic politics. I was very proud to vote. Oh, that's good, Mr. X. I think he was saying he wanted to make this, make this party, the Republican Party, bring it together. I could never look, I've never been a Republican. I've been an independent virtually my entire adult life. I just can't understand how people will not vote for someone who has at least some of their beliefs. So, these labels that they use, and you know how much I hate labels. And when the Republican Party does with the Democrat, they label everybody. Oh, you're a racist. You're a misogynist. You're a, you're whatever. And Republican Party, you're a rhino. You're a, well, listen, to me, I always vote. Somebody said, well, you don't like either candidate. That's right. But I will vote for the lesser of two evils. At least I'm going to try to get a half a loaf of bread. I don't understand the rationale behind people saying, well, screw it. I don't like either candidate. Well, you know something? I don't think most people can like 100% of anything. So I look at the philosophies and I say, well, they're more in line with what I want, and they have some things that I want to get done, not all things, and the other one is a total loony. They're out there on the left. Like now, I've been told by a very reliable source that we're getting busloads of illegals in Westport at the Hampton Inn. And, this, to me, this is a sign of what these woke liberals do. I mean, they're going to destroy the country. And they don't care because they're totally out of touch. They're like Coogan and his elitist friends. And Biden is an elitist friends. They don't care. They don't identify. I saw a clip this morning on a national news on one of the stations about those imbeciles, um, Jen Psaki and the rest of them, all the Democratic elitists, and what's her name? The other one, I don't know, a whole bunch of them there. I think it was on MSNBC, saying that, oh, look at these, like fundamentally calling them idiots. Oh, look at these idiots in Virginia. They were polled and they said that their biggest concern was the border, the immigration crisis. And then they all actually, like the basket of deplorables, they again laughed at these people. And they said, oh yeah, they're worried about the border. Like, look how stupid they are. They have a border with West Virginia. Well, to show you how insensitive and out of touch with anything except counting their own money they are. Apparently, they didn't know that a 14-year-old girl in Virginia was raped by a Venezuelan gang member and illegal. And Venezuela is doing what Cuba did. They're emptying their jails and sending us all their criminals. But these people don't care, and they won't care till they get raped. Until they've taken everything they can from the regular people, then they invade the rich neighborhoods, and then they're going to do what Lori Lightfoot did, call in the National Guard. Then it's going to be an issue for them. These people, they're just ridiculous. So when you look at this stuff, I don't know why the Republicans do that, CJ, but I think that election showed that maybe, hopefully, a lot of the Republicans want to actually act like a unified party for a change, rather than, it's amazing that when you're a Republican candidate, you got to worry more about your own party stabbing you in the back than you do the other party. Where the Democrats, they'll kill each other with infighting, but once the election gets together, they'll never vote Republican, and I don't have to tell you that. You lived it. So with that, CJ, back to you on this.
It's always something very interesting. And by the way, we are being raped financially. Okay? We are being raped financially with all of these newcomers now. That's the new term for them, newcomers. Okay? You can't say illegals anymore. You can't say migrants anymore. Now it's newcomers. All this political correct bullshit's got to stop. The worst part about it is that the state legislature is meeting to discuss the housing of these people and how they're going to afford it, and if they're going to place limits on the amount of time they can stay in the shelter system. Can you see if all of a sudden they put a 30-day limit on the shelter system or a 60-day limit, and all of a sudden we've got all these illegals, all these migrants, all these newcomers, whatever you want to call them, out on the street? They'll be doing like they're doing in Boston, handing out tents. People will be living on the streets. They'll be in on government center underneath the awnings and stuff, just to stay away from all of it, just to stay away from the weather. Well, guess what? At least it's getting warmer, so it will be an interesting time to see what happens. I can't understand it. I can't fathom it. I cannot support it. I didn't ask for you to come to this country. And the one thing that I have to say, which is accurate, and it's not whether or not I'm a Trumper, it's not whether or not I'm a Biden supporter. The bottom line is this. When Trump was in office, we were shipping all the illegals back to their countries. We had 517 miles of fencing went up. 517 miles. And Trump was working diligently on getting a fair and balanced immigrant policy in place. And what has happened? Nothing. Biden turned around and said, well, I proposed a policy, but the Republicans don't want to let it go through. Yeah, because it's not a policy. It's not something that people want. It's more liberal than it is now. We've got to stop with this liberal bullshit.
Look, CJ, all they ever do is spin and lie. He undid virtually everything that Trump put in. So there's no need for a new bill. Trump managed to close the border. He undid it. But that's what politicians do. It's like they lie about everything. You talked about the housing for them. How about the housing for our people? Now that segues us into our next thing, which we'll get into with retirement in a little while. So, Coogan was on the radio again. Pathological prevaricator Paul. Lying about housing again. We got 28% housing complete in the mix. I forgot what adjective he used, but cumulatively or something, whatever. We got 28% of this kind of housing. And everybody else has got 2 or 3%. We've done our share. No, you haven't done your share. You haven't done your share. Because again, workforce housing, public housing, affordable housing, but the new definition is different. We've explained this ad nauseum, but you're not dumb enough to really believe yourself, but you know it's a talking point, like the Democratic talking points. Let me tell you something. They did a 1 week of programming on the housing crisis and rent crisis in Rhode Island on Channel 12. An entire week, because they understand that people in this country cannot afford the rents. And Coogan's going, oh, well, we got a whole bunch. Well, most of that is public housing, and it's our fault. But apparently we don't even have enough of that in this city. This is a poor city. Delusionary people like Sean Kadim said, oh, we're perfect. We got 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Bullshit we do. If we've got 20%, we've got the highest percentage of public housing in the area, and we still got a waiting list that takes years to get in. We don't have enough, do we? Of low income, super low income people can't get an apartment. He's full of shit, as always. He lies, and he doesn't care about the law, and that's what he's done with the retirement system. He got his 2 stooges to vote no and throw out the 5th member, because he thinks he's going to be able to appoint that member like he did on the other boards. Well, he's going to have a fight on his hands this time. It's not the other board where you got all the other yo-yos, like your yo-yos on a city council nodding their heads like bobbleheads. You're in for a fight, Paulie. You're in for a fight. Because Jimmy Machado and I, and you saw it on a video, we're not going to let this happen without a fight. You think you can appoint somebody? I don't think you can. You know why? Because those 2 boneheads that you put on a retirement board did not execute their fiduciary duty. So I'll tell Mr. Nassif, who yelled at me, I'm a fiduciary! I'm going to yell back at him, you weren't a fiduciary! Because when you were sitting in that room, you were a fiduciary for the retirement system and the people in the retirement system. And you and the CFO, who's from Rhode Island and doesn't have a clue about our laws, just said no because you said, well, now Paul gets to put it in. Well, guess what? You may, but then again, you may not. Because look what I found. Well, first of all, I'll remind everybody, here's Fall River. Here's Fall River. Here's Fall River. There we are. At the bottom, over here, it's got us like second from the bottom. We're actually third. The Boston teachers are in there, but they didn't put the teachers in because the teachers' unions are separate from the PERAC unions. So, but they also have 100% here. You see, there are cities that are 100% funded. There they are. Okay, 100% funded. And then, on the last show, we talked about this guy's resume, who they ignored. Didn't even ask a question, Didn't care. Just said, we say no, Paulie told us to say no, and he'll get to appoint him. This is a short synopsis of his professional resume. He was the Director of Municipal Finance in the town of Braintree. He was also on a retirement board for 13 years. He was the Treasurer Collector in the city of Newton. He was the town accountant of the town of Milton. He was the Treasurer Collector of East Bridgewater. He was the Treasurer of Dedham. He was the Audit Supervisor. He's an Audit Supervisor, Senior Account Controller. Has a bachelor's from Boston College of Science, major accounting. He's a certified public accountant, has his own firm in Boston. He is a member of all kinds of organizations. Why does that matter? Fasten your seatbelts, kiddies. And you, Chief of Staff, take notes. Here it is. See what that says? PERAC. PERAC. This is a PERAC memo. And I'm going to read it. Not in its entirety, but the highlights. The purpose of this memorandum is to remind retirement boards of their fiduciary obligations relative to the selection of the board's fifth member and the hiring of board employees. This memorandum is meant to complement the memorandum number 14 of 2009, which focused on the statutory requirement that the fifth member shall be chosen by the other four members. Shall, not maybe, and if the mayor leverages his appointees to let him make the selection. Then it goes on and it cites the CMR and the laws. Then it goes on to say board members' duty. A board member shall discharge his or her duties solely in the interest. Now listen to this, Mr. Nassif. Listen, Mr. Fiduciary. Shall discharge all of his or her duties in the interest of the members and their beneficiaries, not the city budget. The members, and I said that, and I got the video, and I had case law, and you didn't want to hear it, that explained it to you. Then it goes on to say, the selection of the fifth member is a duty owed to the board members and the beneficiaries, and every effort should be made toward an open and competitive process. Pursuant to this duty and Chapter 32, and it cites the state, but I'm not going to give it to you. You can scurry over to the law department and look it up yourself. And you can look up what number this memo was and what year, because I had to do it, so you can go do it yourself. The board should actively solicit resumes of interested candidates through public postings and announcement, and we did. And we got 2 applications. And this applicant was one of the best applicants I have ever seen. Probably, he should be running the city. They should hire his ass, get rid of Bridget, get rid of all of her assistants, and bring this guy in. But no, the mayor wants to put his flunky in so he can screw the retirement system, tank it even more, and cut everything, and get money into his budget to give out pay raises. And here comes the coup de grace. Finally, a board, and listen to this, you two. Finally, a board should not abdicate. And in case you don't know what abdicate means, look it up, Mark. Its authority to the Board of Selectmen, mayor, or city manager by simply opposing a candidate in order to force a tie-breaking selection. This is the board's function, and every effort should be made to perform its fiduciary duty. And you didn't even interview this person, and I was the chair of that meeting, and I offered the 2 of you the opportunity to have a telephone conference with both applicants and bring them in for a live. And you know what you did? Nothing. You just said, we're going to just shut up and vote no so the mayor can make the thing. You violated the damn oath under the law. You violated the law. And I'm going to make sure I file every complaint I can. We're going to write the PERAC, and at next week's retirees meeting, I'm going to see if we're going to depose your asses if we can. Because the director will testify you didn't make any attempt at all. This is the law. This is the law. You violated your fiduciary duty. The next thing I'm going to have to research is what organization gave you the right to be a fiduciary. Because apparently you don't understand what a fiduciary does. So this is not a board that's got two bobbleheads. You got two people here that have been fighting for their people for years. Jimmy Machado worked with Prim, worked with PERAC. I've been working in this system forever. We're not going down without a fight. We are not going to go quietly into that night. We are going to write everybody. We are going to do everything we can. I've already put in calls to the state association. I have calls to an attorney to prepare this. You're not going to do this. You're not going to do this. We had a extremely qualified candidate, and you did not do your due diligence. You did not even attempt to do your due diligence. You did exactly what that PERAC memo said. You abdicated your authority in order to allow your boss, the mayor, to stick another one of his cronies on the board. And I'm going to tell you something. You're going to regret the day you did it. And with that, back to you.
Now, if I remember correctly, Mr. Nassif works in the finance industry and is licensed as a financial advisor or something along that lines. And if he's violated his fiduciary responsibility here, maybe his licensing authority or maybe his professional organization may want to look at that and say, goodbye. And he'll be selling used cars. Everything you do has an action and a reaction. And you need to make sure you are capable of handling that. Just because you're kissing the mayor's ass doesn't mean you're right. Does not mean you're right. And when you look at who's sitting on the board from the city, it's supposed to be the auditor, which we have one now. No, Bridget, who has no idea what's going on, is going to sit there and say, the mayor told me, oh wait, the mayor didn't tell me anything. I said that we're not going to vote for this guy, although the mayor told me so. I mean, that's what should be said. This is what happens. This is what happens when you have a mayor that is dictatorial. We are living with tyranny. Tyranny is coming out of the 6th floor. And you elected this tyrant. Thank you for electing this tyrant, because this tyrant is making sure that his friends, his developers, his bankers are all making money on your back with every tip, every tie, and every single commission that's given by this city. The tyrant has spoken.
And let me make something perfectly clear. We got the videos on this. Remember, we had the video where I said I had case law explaining that fiduciary responsibility. And the very definition of fiduciary says you are responsible to the people who you work for. And on that board, you work, as it says, for the system, for the people in the system. And they didn't want to hear it. They don't want to hear anything. And that's the problem. The problem is that he chose to be a politician, a political appointee, rather than a fiduciary. And he's supposed to be a fiduciary. And that's the sad part. And I'm not asking for something that you can't have. Jim and I both said we would talk about adjustments to the funding schedules down the road, because we're not stupid. You know, we know at the end of this, at 35, they can't afford it, but it's their fault because they did from 02 to 12, they put us third from the bottom. But we're still reasonable people. We want to protect the system. But no, they want it all. They want the whole loaf. They want it up front, in the middle, and on the back end. And that's not going to fly. But he chose to be a politician rather than a fiduciary. And I did a little bit of research, and I found that this happened long before I was on the board. And I'm going to mention his name, Joe Marshall. A lot of people know Joe Marshall. He, like I, was actually on the mayor's initial transition team in his first term. I worked with him as someone from outside the board to select the new director when Christine left to go to the Cape to finish out her tenure. After years on the board, Christine Tetrault was an amazing director. Mike Pasternak was a great hire. He's done a great job. He's really good with the numbers and stuff, and he knows it. He worked up at Perac. Good director. But I called Christine. She said, you know, a long time ago we had that situation where the mayor was trying to leverage them and they were trying to underfund the system. Joe Marshall was the fifth member. You know what Joe Marshall did? He resigned. He said, I will not vote the way the mayor says because it's not the right thing to do. A man of integrity. Wow. I can't believe it. Somebody actually was a fiduciary. Said, I've got to do what's right. This is not right. And I have a lot more. I worked with Joe on that selection. I didn't know him before. I got to know him a little bit. He seemed like a real, reasonable person. And I think he got to know me because I think he made a comment to somebody that he was surprised that I'm not the ogre that everybody says, that I can negotiate, and I have negotiated. And if you want to be reasonable, I can be reasonable. But if you want to pick a fight, I'm all in too. But the thing is that Joe Marshall had some integrity and he resigned. So it can actually happen. We can select people. But I'm going to tell you something. They're in for a fight. We're not going down. We will not go gently into that good night, as Dylan Thomas said. We will not go gently. We're going to go before the council, not this next meeting, but because I'm going to get some retirees to go down there and look them in the eye and say, you've been assisting this guy in destroying this city. Now, are you going to stand by and let him destroy the retirement system? Because again, he doesn't give a shit about this system. He's not in it. He's in the school, the MTA. And the MTA system is, I guess, fairly solvent. Just the Boston teachers, because they carved themselves out. The Boston teachers, it was Springfield, Boston, Fall River. And they did this to us, and they're going to try to do it again. And that's the very definition of insanity. And if they're going to do that, I'm going to make sure everybody knows that they are accessories to this. And in the next election, I'm going to make sure every active knows that these people are intentionally destroying their system, so it will not be as good a system when they get to retire. Then every retiree knows that any counselor that doesn't have a position against this, and let that fifth member be picked as a neutral member by the board with due diligence, we will work as hard as we can to get them out of office. And with that, CJ.
Well, Chip, I think we're going to have an interesting time with this issue. And as you noticed, there's been a lot of comments regarding this issue, and I think it's important that people know what's going on and that, you know, the mayor is being a tyrant, and this is what you get when you get a tyrant. He wants to decimate your retirement system, people. These employees have paid into this retirement system. And now the city doesn't want to pay its fair share because Paul went on a spending spree like a drunken sailor. Don't say that about me. I'm a tyrant. I can do what I want. You know what I mean? This is the way we get it. And this is the crap we get because of it. So just remember, this is not unexpected. This was expected. And we spoke about it when this mayor came into office, and subsequent elections. We spoke about the same thing, and we've been right. We've been right. And normally we are right. So I want to thank you all for watching. And remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. Have a great day, and we'll see you on Friday.
More to come.